Hello, and welcome to Asia Center's Big Ideas, the podcast series about civil society in contemporary Asia. I'm your host, Kelvin Param. Running a civil society organization in Asia has never been easy, but in an era of shrinking civic space, collapsing aid budgets, and AI generated disinformation flooding the information ecosystem, the operational demands on regional CSOs have reached an entirely new order of complexity. Asia Center has responded not by retreating, but by building, across four countries, multiple hubs, and a deliberately cultivated internal culture that its founder describes as a bubble of competence in a sea of incompetence. But what does it actually take to run a multinational civil society organization in this region? How does one attract and retain talent as the cost of living rises and align people from radically different linguistic and cultural backgrounds around a shared mission? And as artificial intelligence reshapes the production of knowledge and the manufacture of disinformation, how does a research organization ensure that its outputs remain grounded in local realities rather than the biases baked into the models it uses? Joining me once again is Dr. James Gomez, founder and regional director of Asia Center. James, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Kelvin. Happy to be back on our third episode here.
James, before we delve into the specifics of Asia Center's operational model, could you start by telling us what Asia Center does?
Certainly. Just as a reminder, Asia Center began operations officially on 25th June 2015. In June 2026, we would have been running for a good 11 years. And we were founded specifically as a civil society research institute. We undertake research around issues related to democracy and human rights, transform them into curriculum that can be used for capacity building of CSOs. We use the same evidence from our research to undertake evidence based advocacy. And last but not least, we deploy social media as well as engage with mainstream media to put the word out on the issues of the day, especially those that are, research informed based on the work of Asia Center.
So, what specific role does the center play to protect democracy and human rights in the region?
Right. Our research primarily investigates the gaps in democracy and human rights. Now, whether it is specifically at a country level in one of the countries in Asia, or it could be across a particular theme in a sub-region of Asia, such as South Asia or East Asia, or it could be a theme, let's say, around gender rights across several countries in Asia. So we pull out the gaps in democracy and human rights, and we create an awareness around it. The aim is to organize people to come together so that we have a stronger group, a stronger voice to advocate for change. So we are in the business of persuasion, persuading, key stakeholders, including governments, Human Rights Commission, other CSOs, uh, political parties, to pay attention to these gaps in democracy and human rights and take corrective measures to enhance the enjoyment of these rights by ordinary people. So this is what we do, and that's what we bring to the democracy and human rights landscape.
In the introduction, I mentioned that Asia Center is a multinational organization, and the center now has hubs across Asia in Bangkok, Thailand, Johor Bahru, Malaysia, Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and most recently in Seoul, South Korea. Why does the center have a presence in multiple countries?
Right from the day go, when we envision a kind of an Asia-wide civil society research institute, we didn't want to be stationed in any one particular country and claim to be covering the whole region. Um, we wanted to have the bona fides uh, to establish, footholds and extend our footprint in the region. It was very modest at first. We started out with offices in Southeast Asia primarily, and most recently, in early 2026, we completed the reciprocal arrangement of honorary office in East Asia, so South Korea. And we do have plans in the short to medium term to explore another model of an honorary office somewhere in South Asia. This was to really establish a footprint. Our offices also act as uh, kind of quasi sub-regional nodal points. For example, the office in Malaysia, we like to term it as our Nusantara office. Um, Staffers there all speak Bahasa, and we cover Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, and also Singapore because they are part of that Nusantara region. So this is just to give you a sense on how the hubs work in terms of geography, footprint, uh, and so-called boots on the ground.
More specifically, how is the work divided between all these locations?
There's a practical and logical approach to why the different hubs are named in a particular way, and how the work is subdivided broadly. Um, the original office, what we like to call the regional office, is simply, registered as the Asia Center, and that's based in Bangkok, Thailand. When we tried to register a similar term in, let's say, Malaysia or in Thailand, we were told to add a couple of keywords that would tell the market, the audience, what that particular center does. So when we were, confronted with this registration challenge, we thought about how we want to go about it. And by the time, Asia Center was already operating for a few years, and we began to see there were certain areas that emerged. So we remodeled the logic of the operations at Asia Center. First of all, establishing the research hub in Bangkok, then the media hub in Malaysia, then the training hub in Cambodia, and then a second office called the AI hub in Malaysia. Uh, the South Korean office doesn't really have any sort of thematic or specific agenda. It's simply an honorary office that extends the footprint of Asia Center in East Asia. It serves as a focal point for joint activities in Korea. But all these offices do have a special focus. Like most of the research work is done out of Bangkok. All our publications are published from Bangkok. For the Media Hub in Malaysia, it primarily does a lot of digital production. It does the design, the layout of all our Asia Center Knowledge products, and also supports the work of its partners. And then in Cambodia, the emphasis is more on training. While the emphasis is there, they also do some of the core work of Asia Center. So, for example, the Cambodia office will kind of take the frontline work on ground research if it's issues related to Cambodia. So the office there will take charge of organizing the key informant interviews, focus group discussion, possibly even a launch of a report on Cambodia in terms of specific. And of course, these officers also have staffers who speak the local language. So this is how, the work is divided.
And operationally, what do you see are the benefits and challenges of operating a multinational organization?
The benefits are really you could sort of hedge your bets when it comes to staff. You can have access to a wide range of staff with different language skills that are spread across different countries. They have the local intel and the networks, so your spread and reach is really quite far. And also from a branding point of view, because we have offices that are physical with a brand logo, meeting space, working desk. So it also increases the credibility of your operations that people can come and meet you at your office, that they know you are there and you want to be there long term, and your infrastructure certainly makes that quite clear. There are also other practical reasons. Most countries are, quite strict rules around work permit for international staff. So you can't really have, staffers from other countries all, huddled up in one office because of the work permit conditions. So with different offices, not only you can hire staff who are, from the local jurisdiction, but you can also avail yourself of the requirement for foreign staffers to be placed in their respective countries. So different countries have different requirements. Some are challenging, some are less challenging. So these are things that make it easier. But in terms of challenges, obviously one thing is the cost. The more staff you have, there's always that slight overhead, but there's also economies of scale. For example, we use one website, one social media, one a business domain across all offices. So that kind of helps. Um, the systems that we have are used across all the offices. What is extra is really the business cost, the accounting cost, and other kind of government charges that may come due to operational compliance, which are then times three or four, depending on how you operate. So, but at this stage, it works well. Partners, donors, collaborators find that having multinational, multi-country offices allows us to operate at a particular level and also makes us attractive to others in terms of reach and footprint. It's certainly different from uh, having office in one space and then claiming to be truly regional and at best having just an individual working from home in a particular capital as justification is why an organization is regional.
You've mentioned that you tell staff that Asia Center must operate as a bubble of competence in a sea of incompetence. What does this phrase mean? And how is it relevant to the work done by Asia Center?
Certainly, I mean, it might sound a little harsh, just taken out of context. But it comes from the many years that I've been in this space and what partners look for. Partners, often look for competent work, good workflow, timeliness, punctuality, and things like that. And often they don't get it in the region, and often they don't get it uh, from most CSOs. I'm not saying all of them are the same. I mean, there are some that are far superior, better, and bigger than Asia Center. Uh, but they do want rigor, quality, professionalism, timeliness, and so on. So, as a way of just articulating the needs of the partners, I use this phrase, bubble of competence in the sea of incompetence, which simply means, if somebody sends you an email, we have a policy here. We urge our staff to reply to that email within 24 hours. If we use, for example, a messaging apps such as WhatsApp, we ask staff, especially if it's through our official, work-related WhatsApp channel, for staff to answer it within the hour if they possibly can. Because oftentimes we are confronted with partners and beneficiaries to whom you may send a message on a social media app, and then you don't get an answer. In spite of following up, you won't get an answer for a week. The same with emails, or people don't read instructions to an invitation in a conference. These are just tips of the iceberg. So, because of this, I often tell staff that we will have the edge vis-a-vis, other entities, people, and organizations if we are just all together. Be on time, be efficient, be competent, and then it becomes attractive. I also tell partners, if you come to Asia Center, you get a business class seats, right? And that is why partners, come back to us. And they often say things like that. Uh, it's always a pleasure working with Asia Center. Oh, we know Asia Center's standard. It's always good, you know. So that's why they come to us, and whenever they attend a conference or a seminar, they always go away and say, "So well organized." Right down to the detail, including the level of cleanliness and color coordination at our offices, if I may add.
Beyond these basic competencies, in episode 1 of this series, you also mentioned that the initial success and ongoing sustainability of Asia Center were anchored by a core philosophy of a culture of giving rather than taking among staff. What does this mean in the context of Asia Center's work?
Yeah, this should be, the culture of giving should, kind of be understood broadly. And I know we will be speaking about it down the track in a few minutes, about the culture, what culture set by international NGOs. But here, how I can explain the culture of giving is what we look for uh, when we, sort of employ staff, or even interns, what are we looking for? We look ideally at empathy. When a person comes, if it's all about me, 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 I want to learn this, I want to gain this, I want to travel, I want so much money, and all of that. For us, it's a red flag. What we try to educate and share is, because we are in the social space, we try to encourage consideration for the organization. We try to pass on, let's say, EQ, where you have consideration for your colleagues as well as the beneficiaries that Asia Center serve. Uh, it is also, kind of motivated by a personal philosophy as well. For example, not only do I know, but I also see on a regular basis, there are individuals who have a few dollars, not many dollars, not all of us have many dollars, but maybe a few dollars, depending on where we are in life. It's a question of how you spend it. Now, I could have not done Asia Center. I could have sat at home and just self fund myself to the range of conferences around the world, maybe, write something to present and do that. And a lot of people do that. They are retired, they retire early, they have few dollars. What I'm saying is these are modest amounts, not large amounts, but they spend it on themselves and they travel conferences. I wanted to be different. I also wanted to set an example, and I say this to friends as well, who are, and there's a bunch who also support Asia Center in one way or another. And I said, look, what I will do is I will not spend the few dollars on myself and pay my way to a conference and give talks for the next years, but instead I'll put that money in a kitty and try to build something for the remaining years, so that it becomes an entity, almost like a cooperative where other people can also partake. And at some point, just hand it over to someone else who can kind of, carry it forward and evolve it, innovate it to the next level. So this is what, I mean by a culture of giving, and we do come across individuals, who step into this space and understand it's not all about themselves, that actually they want to be part of a community, part of a group, and they can give, willingly, without, anyone pushing them, right? And you have different, like, like, when you arrive at an office, what do you do? You come 15 minutes earlier, right? Do you step into the office or do you sit in your car for the next 15 minutes so you have the time for yourself because you are so afraid to come into the office in case you are accidentally drawn into a conversation before the clock begins, right? Or are you the kind of person who's early 15 minutes comes in, sits down to your a water bottle on your table, uh, shoots the breeze with a colleague, and then, don't mind flipping on the laptop because you are there for a socially driven activity. So these are things, it's personality driven. It's about what you have learned in school, your home culture, what kind of ethos you carry. Not everybody is the same, but we do look for people who have that, empathy and that ability to give to others, without feeling painful or that they are losing something. So that's what we try to look, and that's what we mean by culture of giving.
In a region where the cost of living is rising rapidly, how does Asia Center find and retain talent?
It's a good question, and our approach is not in a corporate or commercial way in terms of, we hardly talk about retaining talent. We speak about, identifying people with shared values, mission, and interest. And our experience has been, the deeper the shared interest and mission, the longer that people stay at Asia Center. We basically have three categories of people with us. The first category would be kind of, new graduates, people, leaving a place, looking for their next gig in a particular role. They usually come in and it's very transactional because although we try to hire people with shared values and interests, sometimes, uh, or most of the times, we miss the point. So these individuals usually don't last beyond the year because there's no sync. Um, Even the money for them is not enough. Uh, they don't really gel with the issues. Uh, they need to get on to the next gig, or they simply don't fit in with the rest, right? For one reason or another, apart from values, punctuality, subscribing to, what we call, working competently. So that's the first category. They usually, tend to be, like fresh graduates, new. Then you have the second category. These are older staff. They may have some challenges, in the 11 odd years I've been with Asia Center, I've seen people come through who have had some life crisis, mental health issues, and others. Uh, and they usually do not last more than 2 years, simply because a mental health issue catches up with them. Um, they again, one of the features is they may not uh, fit into the work culture. So our work culture is punctuality, good attendance, other simple things that keep the office clean. If people find those limited things a bit challenging to adhere, because some people just can't make it to work on time, and others, um, they struggle. They can complete a year, and then they struggle, and by the time the second year, they leave. Often, they don't fit in. Everybody in the room kind of knows, they'll be leaving pretty soon. And then we have the third category, which are our strongest category. These people will always be working with us more than 3 years and up. And we have a good core. They are also our managers or senior staff. These are people who stay in long term, and they share the values. They like to work. They have, in two, and by the time third years, achieved a high level of competence. They have the trust of the other colleagues. The work has also become easier for them because they understand the issues. They are often quite settled. They are a bit older. Um, and therefore, retaining them is not challenging because it's self-retention because they identify with the goal. And it's a pleasure to work with them because you can feel they are the co-owners of the Asia Center. They care. So we've been very lucky to have nearly half a dozen people around the offices in Asia Center, who fit the third category. And like I said, it's self-retention because of the shared values and the enjoyment of the work.
And how do you get people from diverse language and cultural backgrounds to gel?
It's kind of similar to what I just said earlier. I think we have less and less, language and cultural gaps. The gaps we may have is only around shared values and mission objectives and how we get there. So this is actually a very, very low barrier, the cultural and language aspect. In fact, we almost don't feel it as such. So I would simply say, refer to the answer to the question above, simply because this is easily dissipated because of shared values.
You're listening to Asia Center's Big Ideas, and I'm speaking with Dr. James Gomez about what it takes to run a multinational civil society organization in an era of shrinking civic space and contracting budgets. James, what have you observed among international non governmental organizations or INGOs in recent years?
In the 2 decades, I have had a chance to work at INGOs and work with INGOs and observe them. What I would say INGOs have become, especially the global ones, is they have become a corporate sector of their own. The key language that you hear and the energy you feel, it's always about chasing the dollar. Partly it's because operations have grown so large. They want to break new ground. They want more staffers, more ideas, more issues they want to engage with. So they need to chase the dollar. So they walk the uppity up tops of the INGOs, they walk like, CEOs, with a swagger, where they talk money, and they want to network up to see where they get the funds from. So um, that's how they have evolved. And in very recent years, of course, all of that has crashed simply because, as you know, I spoke to you two episodes back in episode one, where we spoke of the severe drop in funding, a fracture, even we can say, about the donor grant landscape. So they've gone corporate, they've gone so big, and then now they've gotten beaten back because of this fracture and fissure in the funding landscape.
You've also written that the INGO sector is veering towards becoming a false sector. What do you mean by false sector?
I mean, it's like the Japanese bubble economy because there was so much money swirling around, some of it very necessary for work related to humanitarian development, disease eradication, poverty eradication, and correcting severe gender imbalances and so on. We always needed resources for those, and no matter how much we had, it was never enough. But at the same time, it created a false sector in the sense that it spurred the language of a professional class. So it is not unusual even in current days when the market is simply, fractured, to have people come around and push you CV saying, I'm a development professional. What that means is, in practical terms, when you're interviewing such people, would be they need a high wage quantum. They would need international travel. They want to have enough money to send their children to international schools. They want an allowance that will allow them to live comfortably, so on and so forth. But who doesn't want that? But that is what this sector has spurred. And I call it a false sector because I kind of always knew it's not sustainable. It was artificially created. Now that the sector has collapsed, then you have many people from this era of the NGO bubble economy, INGO bubble economy, all displaced, looking for work, looking for the same quantum. Um, they are at this dire situation willing to, of course, calibrate downwards, but not by much more. So even if they can't get a full-time job, there's hardly many, and they veer towards consultancy, they will still, expect a high quantum in order to avail themselves of an envisioned lifestyle. And I'm just, stating the reality that's out there. So that's what I mean by it has created a false sector driven by these variables, where passion and the desire for mission, while it may exist with some, but mostly absent in most others, right? So it's almost like a corporate ladder climbing. Somebody will do 2, 3 years here and then looking for the next gig that pays higher in a different country, so on and so forth. So that's what I've seen over the years in the INGO sector.
James, as a research organization, what productivity tools does Asia Center utilize to do its work?
I think there are two things that we've always had, and we have built up over the decade, is a task list approach, meaning for every project, every activity, uh, we generate a task list because some of the things that we do are fairly, unique to Asia Center because it's based on the projects we were able to secure. Not very different with how some other organizations doing similar work may approach it. But over the years, we've developed a task list. So the managers in particular are responsible for, they are the holders of the task list for different activities or projects. And because our managers stay long term, they are able to curate, calibrate, and build on it. So we have a body of knowledge and institutional memory on how to do things effectively. They do vary slightly from activity to activity, and also whether it's executed in a particular country, because you need to factor in cultural behaviors and other things to manage. So that's one. Built into the task list is also workflow. So we know, okay, from this point it goes into B, A from A to B to C. This is how we the linear flow process, and then there's those hidden variables that might come and affect it, and we have task lists, explanations, and finally we have slides and training material. So the other element of productivity is we have training tools, again, in-house. For example, whether it's a junior researcher or even a research intern, and we get a fair bit of those as well. One of the things they go through, apart from general, organizational onboarding, is training. So, for example, the research team will always conduct a short program on research methodology. How do we do research at Asia Center? What does key informant interviews look like? What are the challenges in securing a key informant interviews? How many percent generally will not turn up for the interview? And how, not all respondents will be able to be eloquent on all questions, and how do you probe, right? And how do you then code the information that you get from a KII, and how do you deploy it? How do we extract codes from KII? And then FDG's focus group discussion, how do we organize that? What's broadly our experience on the optimum size? Um, and some guidance on, how we should construct such FDGs carefully, bearing in mind gender, ideological, language sensitivity, and you don't just lump them all together. So these are some of the things that helps increase our productivity. Right. And not just in research, team in media, right? How long should a social media post be? What's the size of a photograph for Instagram or Facebook? And why do we insist, pre-upload them, and so that they get published at 9 o'clock, or not freestyle it at 11 a.m. in the morning because you simply forgot to do it. So those are the things that are useful for that. But of course, some of this now are being assisted through the use of AI.
Since you mentioned artificial intelligence or AI assisting the work that the center does, how does the center use this technology and what have been the benefits of doing so?
Um, the one thing that people don't mention, about AI, it's translation functions at two levels. Asia Center does move quite extensively in the region. Just navigating. If you don't speak Bahasa Indonesia, or if you don't speak Khmer or Thai, just being able to, find a taxi, finding out where the hotel is, being able to translate the signs at the airport so you know where to go. That itself is extremely important, including menus, right? So that's because the work that we do requires us to move. So is that at one level? I did mention earlier about, key informant interviews. As part of our training, this is something that we do. Uh, for example, if we did a KII in Bahasa Indonesia, we can transcribe the audio into Bahasa Indonesia. We can then translate it further into English as well. Now, previously, this would cost us money, but these days, we spend less because we cannot just use the machine or software translation directly because it's not accurate. So you will still need subject matter and language expertise to be able to clean up whatever that has been, machine generated or software transcribed. But the speed and the cost is much more attractive these days. We also do coding of the key informant interviews. We do it manually because we want to ensure quality and to make sure that there's human oversight. But we are at this stage, we are not confident, but we are willing to experiment to see if we can upload the transcribed interviews as well as coding questions and to see if it can, do the coding for a purpose of interviews. Uh, we are looking into it. So this is how we are mostly using AI in the language space. Otherwise, the media team sometimes uses AI to maybe sharpen or economize the number of texts they use for social media. But it's often we have in-house policies of drafting it by hand based on the topic, issues, or activity we want to highlight, and then we do allow, we don't disallow, we do allow, but the manager has the final oversight to ensure that everything is right and proper. We will do other things also, ideation. For example, we are thinking about the theme for Asia Center's 12th conference, which will be held in August 2027. And we were thinking about the issue of peace building and democracy in Asia, how to build a trust divided society. So we had a go using AI just to see, what are the key conflicts in Asia. Of course, there's a whole bunch of different uh, intensity across the region, quite many actually. So once we have that, then we use that as a discussion point about how we want to narrow it for the purposes of Asia Center beneficiaries, and those, who might be interested and willing to participate in such an activity. So we do use it for ideation. Of course, there's a lot of hallucination, slop, and all of that, but we are able to cut through it because we have long-serving staff with experience in the region who are able to grasp the issue sharply and counter the things that we see. So this is where um, we mostly use it. We mostly use it for research. We have experimented very briefly with poor results on the generation of tiles or images for our social media, including generating sort of icons or uh, other graphics for our presentations, PowerPoint presentations or slides, but we found them to be, they kind of look fake and definitely artificially generated. You can tell it straight away. So we don't use those. So you will see it on Asia Center social media. We use a lot of original photographs and doing design, in the traditional way. But we do use it a fair bit, translation, transcribing, maybe a little bit of final tweaking of, social media posts, or even, if we have a working title for a report, we put it through to see if we can, adjust it a little bit further. So that's where we are at. If I can say one other thing that guides Asia Center in the way we use AI, is the term that we have coined called principled caution. So we approach AI with principled caution, the use of AI with principled caution. We use it, but we are extremely cautious about what it can do. So we ensure there is, oversight. Uh, Once again, senior staff with experience, they're generally cautious. Our younger members, the occasional interns, are the ones who use AI profusely. And the minute they do that, you can see you can't really use the things they generate from AI because it's not based on reality. So now, for onboarding, we do introduce this idea of Asia Center's principled caution, and we also, tell them or show them, how and where it's best used at Asia Center for the work that we do. So that's our, kind of approach generally on AI.
It's really heartening to see how Asia Center has adopted AI with principled caution to make sure that it is used judiciously and beneficially. I'm going to flip to the other side of AI, the not so good side of AI, and look at that a little bit. So, in the last episode of Asia Center's Big Ideas, you mentioned that it was not unheard of for governments and ruling parties to disseminate fake news. And all that was before the widespread availability of large language models, which is the technology that underlies ChatGPT, Claude, and DeepSeek. A scan of social media will reveal that such AI tools have opened the floodgates of disinformation and fake news. So, how does Asia Center work with other regional CSOs to advocate for democracy and social justice in such an environment?
It is a complicated issue. When you walk into a room full of CSOs, donors, NGOs, because people have different views about how best to deal with disinformation, especially disinformation and fake news in the times of AI. Because it's not just disinformation and information manipulation, there's another under discussed dimension, which is hate speech polarization. But what is the challenge when you walk into the room? Because you have a cohort of people who, until today, rightly or wrongly, believe the best way to deal with fake news is fact checking. Now, but the market is divided over it, the effectiveness of fact checking simply because of the volume of fake news and the veracity or the viciousness in which it spreads. It's almost ideological on who stands on the side of fact checking. But the truth of the matter is, whoever's doing it will have to depend on where they get the dollar to support it or how long they can do it as a volunteer. The other sort of, false news busting myth is the promotion of media literacy. So you walk into the room, there's another bunch that will swear by media literacy as a way of inoculating society on how to navigate fake news. But the question is, you know, uh, how many people can you literally educate? Do you have the footprint for all of society? Do you have the budget? Do you have the organizational capacity to deliver media literacy trainings at a national level? Uh, Even governments are not willing to spend money on that. In Asia, the one government that comes to mind that spends money and has a program at a national level is Taiwan. But that's kind of also about guarding its people against what the Taiwanese government says is fake news from China. So where the debate stands now, and this will also change, is shifting narratives. So there's a range of work that is about shifting narratives. Uh, and Asia Center is part of several networks. We are part of the Global Democracy Coalition, and we are also part of another membership called the People Power that convenes the democracy narrative alternatives. And here we are involved in, putting out social media narrative, op-eds and all that, promoting and supporting the idea of democracy, because it's one of the things that is being beaten down with fake news on the World Wide Web through social media and accelerated now by AI. But can we shift the narrative? So this is where mainstream media is out. It's simply again it's religion. If you're a journalist, you spend 20, 30 years at it, you're not going to abandon mainstream media. You will promote fact checking and journalism training, and that's all well and good. But at the same time, there is recognition there are content creators, influencers in particular, and they may be the ones to tap to shift narratives and so on. And money is going that way. However, what we hear is, dealing with influencers can be challenging. They may not deliver. They may require resources that you may not be able to afford, and they may not comply with the message because they must be interested in what you do. It must be fitting it with the profile they already have. So that's where we are. Recognizing this, we are happy to spend a little bit more, you know, time, energy, resources on direct communications because we don't have to change the world in the broad sense. We don't want everybody thinking the same as Asia Center or our collection of people who share values. So we are happy to kind of have direct communication, work with people who are like-minded, and then build that relationship, and pull that together. So that's where, Asia Center is right now in terms of dealing with fake news and hate speech. Believe in dialogue, community building, and those things.
James, you mentioned that Asia Center is working with multiple other CSOs and NGOs to improve discourse in democracy and civil rights and social justice. And I noticed that Asia Center continues to position itself as a regional nodal point for knowledge production and coordination, exemplified by your convenings such as the upcoming Summit on Religious Freedom in Asia. How do these large scale alliances and coordination efforts help to build systemic resilience necessary for civil society to survive and thrive in an increasingly constrained regional environment?
Yeah, we call that movement building. Um, Over the 11 years, and of course, and years before, as a institutional and individual contributor in this space, um, we do have a good network. And so we are able to convene. And I think this is what we do best. In addition to the research, we convene. I'm told by third parties several times that Asia Center gives a very clear, neutral, and independent vibe. that allows people the comfort and confidence to attend our activities. So we are able to convene national level activities as well as regional level activities quite successfully, and that has always been our forte. Many international partners also tap us to assist them to convene such meetings. So in that sense, we are always busy, both for ourselves and on behalf of our partners. The upcoming Religious Freedom in Asia conference is our 11th conference, is our annual convening. And once again, we expect, people in the region and those from outside the region, but who have an eye on Asia, to come for the meeting. It's our flagship event. We have built it up over the years, and we will continue to do so. And I think this is what gives the resilience in the region. That people are coming together and so on. It is not easy because there is a drop in resources and funds to bring people. We like to bring more people together, but because of the limited funds and also for Asia Center, so Asia Center plays the role of a secretariat as a convening partner. We do that largely gratis. We ask friends, supporters, and people who want to be in the space together so they can meet others to kind of self fund and self pay if they can afford or if they can raise the funds. We also kind of sometimes point them in the right direction, and I think this is something that will continue in the short medium term. At Asia Center, we are mindful that while convening is great, we also understand that all good things must come to an end. Should anything challenging comes Asia Center way and we can't surpass it, we must also, have the long term view of being able to walk away from this Asia Center project and perhaps come back in a new and stronger way. So this is the kind of the reality in which Asia Center operates.
James, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Asia Center's Big Ideas.
Thank you, and happy to be here.
That was Dr. James Gomez, Regional Director and founder of Asia Center. This interview was recorded on the 26th of May, 2026, and it's published under the Creative Commons license. Copyright Asia Center 2026. I'm Kelvin Param, and thanks for joining us.